California Acupuncture Board Research Committee, now take order. Please take roll.
Dr. Michael Cordino.
Here.
Kipman Chan.
Here.
Jean Kane.
Present.
Jamie Zamora.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. So, I'm Dr. Cordino, and today's topics of discussion will be broken into three sections. The first one is going to be the doctoral credentialing. The second one will be dry needling. And then the third one will be the needle regulations and distribution of acupuncture needles. So these topics were brought up today for the reason that there's been an interest in the public as well as in our profession, and I think it's important to first and foremost just state that the California Acupuncture Board is not taking any positions right now on some of these topics. I'm just going to explain some of the facts that I have researched and came across. I want to bring to attention to the public that we as a board are examining these topics, that we're researching it, and we're trying to gather as much information as possible. This is the initial preliminary research into these areas, so we will have some follow-up content in November, and we definitely welcome any questions, any comments, and I know the audience is small today, but those that are watching, those that are going to be watching this recording in the future, regardless of where you're from, please contact us with any information, because this is something that is important to us, and we do want to be there for the public and our profession. Okay, the first topic, the doctoral credentialing. So right now, currently, I have come across 4 doctorate degrees right now. 3 of them have the same credentials as a DAOM. There's a DAOM, there's a lowercase t in front of the DAOM, there's a PhD program, and then there's another DAOM program. The first, and you see it gets confusing right there, right? Well, what I found out is that there's an initial DAOM program which was first instituted many years back, which was a 2.5-year program at that time, and that was an additional program that was offered after the master's program. The recent DAOM program is now being put forward as the first professional doctorate, okay? And then the lowercase t with a DAOM is another doctorate program that is defined as the T being transitional, okay? And there's concerns about that, which I will bring up. And then the PhD is another doctoral program, that's a PhD program. Now, for the concern for the public, there's been some outcry that I have received in the concern of what do these programs mean? It's confusing to the public. Patients aren't understanding what the difference is between them. The option to call, or not even option, the right to call yourselves a doctor is defined to be able to have passed or completed a doctorate degree. And that's a powerful term, doctor, and that shouldn't be used lightly, but it is being used in some of these degrees, all of them when they're completed. Some when they're not completed yet. So the first answer that is most important is that the California Acupuncture Board does not, we're not accrediting doctorate degrees. That's not our purpose, okay? It's important to know that. And it's also important to know that our main focus is to set and approve the curriculum, which is really governed and encompassed through the master's program, right? And that curriculum is set forth and approved by us so that students can complete that and then sit for the CALI exam, okay? That is our first and foremost, outside obviously protecting the public, but when it comes to this type of academia, okay, is that we set forth the criteria for the curriculum, and we approve that curriculum so that students can take the California state exam at a minimum provider level so that they can be successful practitioners without injuring anyone, okay? So that is, I think, one of the nuts and bolts of this discussion, okay, is that when it comes to doctorate degrees, they tend to be an additional work added after the master's program, and the master's program is the curriculum that we approve. Anything outside that really does not fall under our jurisdiction, okay? That's really not for us to really kind of, we don't regulate that, right? Now, there is some concern where people are calling themselves doctors when they're not, and we know that there's some ethnicity kind of, maybe differences where people might be coming from Asia, where it's commonly called doctors when they practice Chinese medicine, and they refer themselves as doctors. But legally, you're not supposed to call yourself doctor, refer yourself as a doctor, until you've completed an accredited doctorate degree, okay? We cannot enforce that unless they are physically advertising, where we can tangibly see something that states doctor, and they're calling themselves doctor, and they don't have a doctorate degree. Then we can enforce something. And that really gets done if there's a complaint that's filed. And then we can act on that complaint. And we can address that with the practitioner and put a file together and flag there, or put some type of notice on their license. Okay? Outside that, again, it's not really in our jurisdiction to govern or control or look too closely at those doctorate programs, because we are concerned with getting students prepared for that entry-level exam so they can become professional practitioners and not injuring the public, okay? Now, there are some schools that offer 2 doctorate programs. There's been some complaints with that lowercase t, and the reason that's been a complaint because the doctorate program used to be 2.5 years. I think it's been trimmed down to 1.5 years, and you're not supposed to be calling yourself a doctor until you've gotten to the last levels of that, and you're on a certain level or aspect of the capstone project, which is kind of like our doctoral dissertation. But students can complete a 1-semester course and get that lowercase t and start referring to themselves as doctors. So obviously there's some unfair issues there that is being brought to our attention, okay? But again, that's kind of out of our jurisdiction as a board for us to really comment or act on that. So I know there's some confusion. We know that there's some interest in the public about that, but that's really not for us to really be acting on, okay? We obviously, as practitioners, I know Jeannie and I are practitioners, and we have another one that may be filling in, but there's practitioners and there's non-practitioners. But the board together works for the public, okay? And it's not a practitioner's idea to try to navigate the board to control things, okay? And that's not what we do, okay? We know that the doctorate degrees, all of them, tend to vary in time, in finances, in hours, and criteria. So that, again, gets confusing, but again, that's really up to the schools that are creating these programs and designing them, okay? And they are different, okay? Now, I think that is the main information that I've gathered from that topic, okay? That there are multiple doctorate degrees, and that they are different, okay? And they vary in different curriculum and hours and definitions, okay? And it's really outside the board's power to really enforce or regulate any of that. We're just looking at the scope of that curriculum for the master's program that sets the standards to sit for the CALA exam, okay? Now, on a personal note, okay, as a practitioner who has completed the first doctorate, okay, not the first doctorate, excuse me, who's completed the doctorate degree, the first in the nation many years ago, which was 2.5 years, and now we see all these changes. On a personal note, which has not the opinion of the board, this is something as a practitioner I just wanted to add. I would like to just know if the schools do communicate about this. You know, are the schools in communication with each other when they're designing these different degrees? We know that in California, there's over 30 schools that teach and that have accreditation for acupuncture. 30. So if every school decided to develop their own doctorate degree, that means we have 30 different doctorate degrees. That's going to be massively confusing. And just for reference, there's only about 5 Western medical schools in California, but there's over 30 acupuncture schools. And it seems like the schools are not communicating. They're all doing their own separate little segregated kind of actions on this. And that builds confusion. It's my personal opinion that I think the schools should come together. They need to organize an official doctorate and work together to help promote the growth and strength of our profession as a whole. Competition is healthy, right? It raises the bar and increases the standards for our profession. But when differences become confusing to the public and financial interests cloud judgment, we as a profession suffer. Currently, our profession is fractured, and it needs to be brought together. There are many different schools of thought when it comes to the application of the medicine, different ideologies, there's ethnicity differences, and there's different organizations. But we need to unite under one flag of Chinese medicine, Oriental medicine, Asian medicine, that we need to come together to strengthen ourselves. We are grown as a profession. Okay? We all know that nationally this profession is exploding, acupuncture is exploding on a national level and on a global level. And there are many other medical professions attempting to take our modalities because of the effectiveness of our modalities. And they're going to leave us with none. Okay, we're going to get into that with the dry needling. Okay? But I personally have sat across from medical doctors, chiropractors, and acupuncturists at the same table, where even the acupuncturists will state that there's way too much confusion and not enough clear education in our profession. And we're not getting the respect we should get. And I definitely find that being extremely detrimental to our profession. Yes. Anything else? Okay, I think that's it for the doctor things. Okay, and again, leaving this open, so if there's any other public comment, which I'll take in a second, but that goes forward for November, we'll revisit these questions and answers, and I'm going to be doing some more further research for this. Okay? Public comment at this time?
Any questions from the?
Any questions from the
Sure, Dr. Cordino, thank you for the presentation. I've actually learned a lot as a public member. I had a few questions considering you listed off several different types of doctorates: DON, PhD, LT, DOAM. So, as a public member, ultimately, in your opinion, what's the correct one, or what's the one? If you're going to be calling yourself a doctor, what's the acronym that you would use?
You know, the problem with that is that the doctorate degree right now is a kind of a post degree that comes after the master's. But now they're instituting a first professional doctorate degree, which is going to eliminate the master's degree, but it's going to hold on to the same criteria and curriculum. So if that doctorate degree still holds the same curriculum, right, that we set forth and we approve, it covers that curriculum for the Cali, right? But they're changing the name to doctor, and they're adding some more classes or curriculum to it to kind of make it a little more complete and further the education. The DAOM has been around for 9 years, roughly. 12 years.
First class. We were
2004.
Yeah, we started 2003, 2004.
So is there specific reasons why individuals would choose a specific doctoral program? Because I understand, at least in the academic world at UCLA, if you get a PhD, you're going on a tenure track to be an academic. You don't want to be a practitioner. But if you do, you'll go get a practitioner doctorate, like an EDD or an SPD. So so someone gets a PhD in acupuncture, are they trying just to be a teacher, or are they for practicing as well?
They're practicing as well. I don't think I've ever come across a difference in that focus, whether it's going to be a scholarly or educational versus a clinician.
So they can do both.
They can do both. And I think that the main difference is that lowercase t allows a master's student or someone who just graduated to get back into school in one semester. They can call themselves a doctor with lowercase t, and the concern is that people are going to be advertising that, and they're going to either not put the t in, or people may not recognize that, or patients might not recognize what's the difference between a lowercase t and a doctorate versus someone who's completed a doctorate versus the first professional doctorate. And how are the patients going to know that?
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, that really, the only thing I would understand or how that would clear it up is when we write our credentials, I write MTOM, DAOM. So everyone knows I've completed my master's and my doctorate, But some people just put DAOM and LAC because they put their top doctorate first, or put their last degree first.
So is this issue pervasive? Is this a big issue? Is this going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, it definitely is, because right now there are schools that have their first professional doctorate getting pushed through. Next year it's going to be completed. And I don't know if it's been completely approved or if it's been the curriculum has been approved by our board that those students may not be able to take the Cali exam. And they just went through a first professional doctorate with this DAOM title, and they might not be able to sit for the Cali exam because it hasn't been approved yet.
Right.
And the approval process, again, we don't approve degrees, we approve curriculum. So that curriculum, has to be able to match the curriculum to sit for the Cali exam, which I believe it does, but it still has to go through that accreditation or that approval process through us.
I think when I spoke to Mark McKenzie, who is the EO for ACOM, about this, ACOM is going through some major transitional period because of the first professional doctorate coming in. And because it's brand new, when we surveyed, when I say when we, meaning when a membership organization surveyed what the membership or the acupuncturists in the country wanted, I think there's a general consensus about having a uniform degree, and that so far in the future will be the first professional doctorate, so that there will be one degree that unifies us. And there's a lot of debate when you talk to the Council of Colleges. It's going to take a long time for 72 schools or something to somehow get on board with that. But eventually, it would behoove the profession to have a singular or just maybe a couple of degrees. But right now, ACOM is dealing with six majors. So ACOM is dealing with six.
6 different doctorate degrees?
6 different degrees. So they're trying to, from the last time I checked in, trying to narrow that down. And I think that's something that ACOM has to figure out, because ultimately they're the accrediting agency, and they're trying to get accrediting for themselves so that they can accredit the first professional doctorate. And that has, that's what we'll find out if that's happened yet. But from what I know, the school in Whittier, Southern California University of Health Sciences, is the first university that is going to graduate their first professional doctorate students. I think it was a 3-year program. I think they're graduating next year or so. And we'll see what happens with that first program. They're the first program to do that. So what followed is going to be a first time for everyone. I'm very interested in watching that right now, because at some point I know there are schools here that have DAOM programs. They came before everything else. It's going to be very interesting to see how that all works out financially for the schools. Can they carry that program? What does that do to their master? What does that do to the DAOM programs? And that kind of clarification will happen in the next, several years, I'm sure.
And if GD said there were 6, I think that's the nation. I only found 4.
So that includes the Masters of Acupuncture and
Also, all the
University
regions,
of
In
Medicine.
the country. Well,
It's all
let me say it this way. There's 19 different licensures in the country. So meaning different states license us differently. That's separate from the accrediting agency trying to figure out how to narrow down all the degrees that they have to accredit. So I don't want there to be confusion on that. But I think at some point when we're doing research on this topic, it would behoove the board to get ACOM to come and explain that, because it's a very complicated. Even some of us that have listened to this for years, I think it would behoove us, because eventually the board, especially the California Acupuncture Board, has to some point deal with our curriculum, we're approving a master's program, but at some point if the whole country's, favoring the first professional doctorate, and if for some reason that becomes the main degree, then we have to look at our regulations and adjust. So this is something that also affects us at some point down the road, and whether it may or may not happen, no one knows. But it would be a good prep for us to look into it and invite someone like Mark McKenzie to come and explain that accrediting process. So that would be my 2 cents.
If I may, just clarify, we don't approve the master's degree. What we have is a large population of programs that meet our curriculum requirements that offer a master's degree. And what you have starting, as you're saying, is the first professional doctorate. It's not going to stop the master's degree program. And like you
I don't
just
think
said,
so.
Jeannie, it's going to take some time.
Yeah,
But right now, it just happens that we have master's programs that fulfill the curriculum. If the board at some point in the future wishes to add the requirement that they have a doctorate degree, that is something that we can seek to change
And
From the legislature.
from the legislature.
Yeah, and then I
Exactly.
think the legislature at some point, because, when you look at the degrees, like, Michael mentioned, international standards, because we're so globalized now, the information, what's going on globally, what's going on nationally, what's going on in California, we're going to all interconnect. And when you look at the global degrees, they start at the doctoral level, whether it's China, whether it's Korea, whether it's the European university. So we do have to start looking at, we do Asian medicine in America, but I think having traveled there, I would really love to see the United States be respected and have equal par to those degrees in Asia. Right now, we're not considered that way. And it's very frustrating to go to these countries and not see that we're respected at the same level that their university is set up. And part of me doesn't believe that our education is lacking, but it's the structure. Because their structure is within a PhD or within a doctoral program, and their length of education is much longer than ours. So right there, we're judged. And are we lesser practitioners? I'm not sure. And do we do less of the classics? I'm not sure. But it's something that we do have to consider when we have this globalization of educational platforms coming up. That the acupuncture board, especially because we are the California Acupuncture Board, and we are approving schools around the country, it is an issue that I think we need to look into.
Anyone else on the committee? Public comment?
Hi.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Greg Sperber. I am not affiliated with a business at this point, so I am independent. I was, however, the dean at Southern California University of Health Sciences that initiated the first professional doctorate in the country. And I think a lot of the questions that you have asked today were exactly the same questions we asked when we were developing that program. I can tell you our philosophy was we had a chiropractic program, which I still believe to this day had stronger standards at the doctoral level than a lot of acupuncture programs did. And our design was to take advantage of those classes and really make a doctoral level acupuncture program. And very advanced, and I've worked at many schools. I still say it's amongst the most advanced, at least in the biosciences of many of the acupuncture and Chinese medical schools. I think, first of all, I came up to address one of Dr. Corradino's concerns about the schools talking and trying to come together on this, and I wanted to say we do have ACOM, the Accreditation Council for the American
Accreditation Commission for Acupuncture.
Thank you. Accreditation Commission for Acupuncture and Medicine. And they are the ones who led the FPD development, the first professional doctorate development. It was in development when I started my master's program in 1994. So it wasn't a short, speedy development process. They actually finalized it in about 2013. So it was a 20 to 30 year process to do the first professional doctorate. I think it's well designed as an accreditation. It might be a little bit old. As accreditation is going these days, everything tends to be competency based. ACOM is trying to get to competency based. They say they're competency based. I think they have a little bit of work to do there, but so do all the accreditors. That isn't a knock against ACOM. I've noticed that at many accreditation. So there has been this process that's been inclusive, has had the colleges involved. More than that, we have the complementary Council of Colleges of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, the CCAOM, which is a gathering of AOM colleges that happen twice a year. Most of the colleges are part of that. And we've had unbelievable numbers of conversations around the first professional doctorate. I think, as I've always said, trying to get a bunch of acupuncturists going in the same direction is not herding cats, it's herding flaming cats. And so the schools are worse. No, trying to go in one direction. But I can assure you that the conversations have been happening very strongly. I was incredibly vocal to the point where I think some people didn't like me in trying to get an actual unified license, degree status. I wanted one name for the country that we could all do. At SU, we couldn't wait for that process, and they hadn't started it yet, even though the accreditation centers were done. So we went to DOM to minimize confusion in the marketplace. We figured, why create yet another doctoral degree and create some confusion in the marketplace? Of course, people hated us for that decision because they said, "Hey, I did the master's and the doctorate. That's more than that, and why are you calling it?" So I think there was no way to win or lose that scenario, but we were trying to minimize the confusion in the marketplace. And that's all I wanted to say. If there's any questions or anything, I was very intimate in this process. I'm not associated with the school right now. The person who did take over for me is Dr. Damone, right behind me, so he may have a little bit more current status with what's happening with that FPD program. But I'm not affiliated, so I don't have to actually. I have to be a little bit more impartial if you have any questions about the process of the first professional doctorate. Thank you. Thanks.
Morning. My name is Dr. Yoon Kim. I'm the president of Ventures College in Santa Monica, and I'm also the secretary on the Council of Colleges of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, which is the council for effectively candidate acupuncture schools in the country. I wanted to inform the board that last year the council discussed this issue of the degree title for the DA1, and we formally voted to reserve the DA1 title for the postgraduate program in acupuncture and oriental medicine. So you may not all be aware of the fact that about 6 or 7 schools have created postgraduate doctoral programs in acupuncture and oriental medicine. 1,200 hours, 2-year programs. Empress has offering this program for 13 years now. ACPCM, Oregon College, 5 branches, a number of schools in California have been offering postgraduate DA1. These programs, students would enter after getting the master's program. So you're doing as I said, 1,200 hours in addition to the master's program. It's a significant investment in time and energy and funds. And the Accreditation Commission gave the title of the DA1. And in the last couple of years, there have been a number of programs popping up called the Transitional or the Bridge Program, and they've also called the degree the DA1, which has caused great confusion with the graduates, with the students, with the schools, with patients. It's been a problem. And so I'm not sure what the board can do in terms of regulating this, but you have a graduate who has 1,200 hours more education above the master's program And then a graduate with, let's say, 200 hours online program with no additional clinical training with the degree of the TAOM. And it's a huge problem for our graduates, and we're asking the board to really look into this issue.
So that what you said, the DOAM.
DO, Doctor of Acupuncture.
Right, so they're the ones that can go online for 200 hours.
Yes.
There's a TM before that,
But they're calling
stand
it.
for transitional.
Okay, I can see the confusion.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very confusing.
All right, we're gonna have to get a chart.
Well,
Dr.
and-
Cordino next time, so.
And to point out, this is under the purview of the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education. The Acupuncture Board has no authority for it.
So that's really important to understand. And I know that there's, as a profession in this, profession, I have feelings like that as well. Well, what Ben said is just the real truth is that we don't really have any influence or any power over that. That is unfortunately up to the schools to really come together, as I was saying before, and unite this, because our profession is growing. As I'm going to go into the dry needling, we're under attack with different other modalities being taken from us, and the separation with doctorate degrees and other things is only, I think, dividing us. But that is unfortunately out of our ability to protect.
It's also important to remember that ACOM is going to be coming on board with the approval process, with the implementation of SB 1246. And so what happens with ACOM is really already going to affect the way the board
Right, the ACOM is doing the survey of the titles, surveying surveys to come to a consensus on degree destinations for all these different programs. And so that's in the works. But I do want to mention the aspect of consumer protection. So you have the consumers out there looking at practitioners, and there's Dr. Cordino with 1,200 hours beyond the master's program with the DOM, and someone with no additional hours beyond what's required for master's program with the DOM. And the consumer won't really know the difference. So it's a big issue, and the board needs to protect the interests of the consumer.
I have a question.
Thank you.
You know, why in the beginning the school create so many doctorate degrees?
We didn't.
So why had to come to so many titles and confused? And now you had a
You guys did. The six schools
I mean,
got
in the
together
first-
and decided to create the DOA program.
Which was much needed. To do research, to work in
That's different
hospital,
from what Kim had asked.
work in the hospital setting. So there was a need for a postgraduate DAOM. There was a demand for it. Our programs are very successful. It's an optional program for those who want to, as I said, integrate, do research.
But if you in the beginning you consider to protect the public confused, there's more the program, more the title. You
Well, I
come up
agree with you. I totally agree with you, and I think it's been very problematic to create another doctoral
And
program.
ultimately, if it's not regulated, schools are free to develop their own
Yes.
programs, so.
That's the problem.
Well, the Board of Private Post-Secondary Education has to approve a doctorate level degree. So really, it needs to be directed to the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education and say, these schools are offering a transitional degree. Is this approved? They have a list of all the approved programs for any school on their website. So they can start, if it's an enforcement action, they can start it with a complaint received. But there's a lot of these programs out there. I know that Christina and I were working on a disciplinary matter where a practitioner was calling themselves a doctor and presenting a certificate for, I believe, 500 hours of education that was not recognized by the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary. This happened back in the 90s or early thousands, and we can't honor that. They are not a doctor. They received a disciplinary matter. So,
Well, I think another way to look at that is the acupuncture board. When you look at the kind of regulatory actions that a chiropractic board has taken, they've done a lot of regulations to change how regulations are going to function. For example, in a chiropractic board, right? When you look at the history of the acupuncture board, we have done nothing when it comes to like our board or the public specifically asking us to change regulation. Our board really hasn't dealt with that, But when you look at other boards, they really have. So if this is something that the public is interested in, and eventually we have to get to that point where we have to change regulation to befit what's happening in society with the schools, we can go through the regulatory process. So I don't want us to just think about from what's going on the inside and how do we correct from the inside. But if we really do need to have a regulatory change to better fit what's happening in our profession, then we can have the power to change regulation. And I want the public to have that empowerment because I see the chiropractic board doing it, I see other boards doing it. They have a very strong board that actually can do that. So it's something for the public to consider. You don't just have to work from, because we had this from 1972, we have to keep everything as is. I think one of the major issues that we're going to be talking about on the full board are the issues I've heard from all of you regarding supervision. I read your letter, Ron. So we have to look at how do we shape it, and the public, you guys, have the ability and the empowerment to do so. That's why regulation and legislation is there. It's there to be processed.
Do you know examples of where the chiropractic
Oh
change
gosh, I mean, if you look at the last 10 years and if you look at the regulations they've made, I mean,
specific one?
So if I could just clarify a little bit, so as it stands right now, we can change regulations and go through that process, but in terms of the actual doctoral degree, that requires statutory authority, which we don't have right now, to promulgate any regulations on that topic. But the board could seek legislation to change that. The public, different professional organizations can also seek that change. And then the board, once it has that authority, can go through the regulatory process to make more specific, implement that statute if it were to be in place.
thank you.
Right, so ultimately the community and the board would need to come together to work together on a specific type of language to then go talk to the legislature about this, because ultimately we can't change regulations. And so this process would be a long process. So ultimately we're missing a third piece here. So I know a lot of us want the board to do something, but ultimately we're dictated by the legislature and what we can do in terms of regulation. So
But I think, no, I agree, and I think it's just important for us to know, we have legal counsel for that reason, to guide us, and I know we are limited by what's in statute, but there are options. There are really options, you guys, and I thank God this is a committee meeting, I can say freely, I just find that the acupuncture board has not taken, or the public that we are interfacing with, has not taken enough empowerment in your hands to really create something, because there's so much apathy. With all due respect, there's so much apathy. But when right minds get together, it doesn't take 1,000 people to change minds. It takes few dedicated ones to actually do so. So I just throw it out there to kind of mull over, because there are options if you choose really to go after it.
Did you want to speak?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe just come to sit in the front row for nothing.
I didn't realize it was nice. Good morning, Dr. Stacy Jones, Vice President of Academic Affairs at Pacific College. I want to welcome you to college. It's nice you guys are here.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes, we kind of thought it started at 9:30, but we didn't realize this was a research meeting, and I'm interested to hear more that you are trying to learn more about doctoral programs. As you know, Pacific College has 2 doctoral programs, or maybe you don't, but we've had the postgraduate for 13 years. And we also are one of the few schools in the nation that has the transitional upgrade DACM. I myself have been DACM, and there are currently 5 different titles for upgrade transitional degrees across the nation. It's not that important, Michael.
No, it is, because we thought it was the
I can help
LM, and we
educate
thought
the
it
board
was a
after the
2.
meeting, but my point
This
is
is not it then?
no.
So it's a transitional
ACM.
Yeah.
What's important for the board to know is
Different than what we thought.
that these titles are regulated by regional accreditors, right? And that in multiple fields across the nation, doesn't matter if it's acupuncture or engineering, it doesn't matter. There's multiple degree names, so a school can choose whatever name they pick. We have aligned ourselves with the Council of Colleges also, and once they made a statement that the DAO would be reserved for the postgraduate program, we changed our name immediately and notified WASP, notified ACOM, notified BPPE, and are taking the right steps. So there's multiple names within multiple degree programs, even outside of our field, that choose conflicting names. It's quite confusing to students, faculty, consumers, whatever profession it is. We're trying to do the right thing here at Pacific College by going with an DACM, which is different from the DAOM, only because ACOM has not chosen a name yet. And accreditors should choose a name for a degree program. They did not. So we have continued to move forward because the profession needs this entry-level doctorate.
Thank you.
I was part of the original team that created the competencies with ACOM 5-10 years ago. I think there's probably some other people in the room that probably helped. It was a long process. The master's degree will go away probably very soon. And we all have to embrace the fact that there is an entry-level doctorate for this profession. The competencies, the 28 competencies that make up that first professional doctorate are now part of many of our curriculums. And so we've gone above and beyond what CAB has stated for entry level. And our students will still be eligible to sit for that exam because we still have that same check boxes, plus 28 other things. So that's not changing. The profession is moving forward. It's just a matter of the board and BP and other states recognizing that these degrees are happening. We're regionally accredited. We've gotten high-level approval. We've done our due diligence and created an excellent, effective curriculum, and it's happening. So whether the schools choose the name that fits what differentiates a postgraduate from an entry level, it's up to them. We can't regulate that.
So that's what we were saying,
Okay.
and I think what we all absolutely agree with that. But the confusion is there's schools are making so many different titles with different names,
They can do it.
but in our profession it's confusing to the public.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yes, there is. There is something you can do about
Unless
it. People are
ACOM
trying to figure out what we
changes
can do about
it
it,
and
trying to make
regulates
the
it.
public less confused.
So we'll see how that process goes. But I'm happy to help you learn more about what those different names are after the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
Dr.
here.
Chairman, that Stacy brings up a good point too. If a program has regional accreditation, they get automatic BPPE approval. So that's another thing. And I'd like to point out that as a point of order that we are approaching 9:17. We need to start the full board meeting.
Okay. Just want to grab a couple, two more.
Sure.
Bill Mosca. I actually was, one of my comments was precisely what Ben just indicated, which is APPE has really no authority over any regionally accredited programs. I also just wanted to layer on to some of the conversation about statutory authority and remind everyone that currently the board really has no role in degree granting at all. In theory, a degree is not even required for life. Oh, okay.
We made that very clear. We made that very clear.
Okay.
That's not our position. We just state, that
Sure.
curriculum for sitting for the CALA. And then after that, above and beyond is the schools, and we're just trying to see if we can come to some understanding so the public's not so confused with so many documents that has right now. In this initial stage, where we're trying to get a professional doctorate to bring up the standard for the profession.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. You're the man.
I missed it again. Apologies.
Dr. DeMone.
Dr. Bob Demone, current Dean of the College of Eastern Medicine at SCU in Whittier, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Very simply, to speak for our college, we, as Dr. Sperber, our previous dean, correctly stated, the original degree title for the FGD program at our institution was DAOM, although that decision was made as a means of not to confuse the public. We do recognize that, in fact, it probably did inadvertently, and we have now decided to come on board with the change of the degree title to DACM, in line with American College of Traditional Chinese Medicine as well as Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, and we hope that, given 3 of our California colleges have now decided to adopt that title for the FPD, while we remain a active participant in the ACOM Delphi process to arrive at a consensus. We do hope that this will help to unify the degree titles in the state and the nation. So we haven't officially announced it yet, though our DAON, FPD DAON program will now be called DACM, Doctor of Acupuncture and Chinese Medicine. And we do that also in deference to our colleague institutions who have had DAON programs, meaning postgraduate doctoral programs. And we're in solidarity with them, as well as the Council of Colleges whose members voted to keep that DAON title reserved for the postgraduate doctor. So just wanted to state that for the record.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Demone, is SCUHS the only first professional doctor program that's graduating students right now, or are there other universities at this time? Because last time I checked in, you're the only one.
We believe that is the case, though
Correct.
other programs, namely ACPCM that I'm aware of, began their first DACM cohort last fall, I believe it was. But
And you're
again,
approaching finishing.
that is true.
And when is that? When are you finishing?
That will be April 2017.
Got it.
Has that curriculum been approved for the Cali exam?
That curriculum is now on the desk of our illustrious colleague, Jay Hurt, as well as an entire new school application which we were required to submit. However, those students are also enrolled in the master's program because it is an approved curriculum. So that is it.
And if you don't mind, how long is the DACM, the first professional?
Our first professional doctor is a 10-trimester program, roughly 3,800 hours. It's a substantial program and it has some features of the postgraduate doctoral program intentionally, namely a capstone process and a very robust biomedical science aspect, as what Dr. Sperber pointed out. It meets and certainly correct any issues that may be present as the curriculum is analyzed by the board. And maybe slight tweaks in terms of words being present on syllabi and so on.
And what is it, I would like to hear, if not at this next 10 minutes, sometime for you guys to approach me, I would like to get a general consensus of how are the schools feeling about the first professional doctorate?
How are we feeling about it? Can you clarify, please, further?
Wait, okay, I got it, thank you.
Okay,
That's all I
so
needed to know.
no question?
Nope,
Okay, thank you.
he just said it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, any more public comment? Please step forward. Introduce yourself.
Dr. Iman Basha. I'm a classmate of Dr. Cordino, Pacific College Master's degree in 1996, doctoral degree from Emperor's 1993. I have over 3 years experience in alternative medicine. I wanted to speak today, and before I came, I was not aware that the California Acupuncture Board cannot regulate these matters. That being said, I'd like to elucidate and provide a little more information. I have personal knowledge of someone who's in the DACM program from Pacific College, and he's going to get it in 3 months for $6,500, all online. Now, it took me 2 years for my doctoral degree. There were tremendous sacrifices. I live in San Diego, and I did it at Empress. There was loss of income. There were lodging and travel expenses. Lots of downtime. Okay, I'm proud of my degree, and it's made a difference. If allowed, the DACM, as it's presently being presented, will destroy the DAOM, because who will want to spend 2 years when they can simply buy a degree for $6,500 as opposed to $28,500? Additionally, someone that I know very well came to my home that's in the program and signed on to my Wi-Fi, and I observed the protocols regarding the quality of the education. You could sign on, take a nap, and put your family dog in front of that program. There need to be standards here, and this I personally witnessed.
So that was here to comment.
Oh, lots of comments, but I don't think this is the correct time.
Is that accurate?
No, there's many inaccuracies in there.
I witnessed it.
Yeah.
Well, this is technically sounding like a complaint. Thank you for sharing. And it should be addressed to the proper bodies that review these issues. As you understand, the board does not regulate that, so please look into Bureau of Private Post-Secondary or the accrediting bodies that you're talking about for that institution. Thank
And
you.
we're gonna continue that still.
We've seen you for 20 years.
Ron Zeidman, president of Five Branches University. I want to clarify just 2 points. First, this first professional doctorate is an entry-level degree, as is the master's. And for many universities, this first professional doctorate and the previous master's are very similar. The DAOM, as it has been stated, is a postgraduate program. It requires 1,200 hours of research and a lot of requirements. In the outside world, the first professional doctorate, or what is now the master's, or what will become the first professional doctorate, will be seen very differently from the DAOM. The DAOM is a different degree. It's a postgraduate degree. And I can give you 3 examples. Hospitals in Oakland will only accept students who have the postgraduate DAOM. One of our graduates was in the military, got a very attractive job to work as an acupuncturist in the military. Her requirement was, you need to get your DAOM, the postgraduate degree, if you're going to work in this military job. A third example is one of our students wrote a very good article on Chinese medicine. The journal liked the article and wanted to publish it. They said, send me a resume, and they found out that she did not have a PhD. And they told her, if you get a postgraduate degree, we will publish. She got her DAOM, not for only that reason, and then she was published. And the fourth example is, one of our graduates was offered to work at to teach at one of the Western universities, and they required the DAOM, the postgraduate doctorate. So this DACM, we call it DTCM, in the future it might be TM because that's what the WHO is using, is an entry level, and it's very similar to the master's. Competencies is a new way of looking at things. So just to make this distinction, and what the gentleman mentioned here, yes, some people will get the doctorate title without doing the postgraduate. However, the people who do the postgraduate are esteemed and have entry into positions that are not available with the entry-level doctorate. There is a difference. And the profession can be proud of having established it.
Okay. Due to any other public comment for this topic? Thank you, Dr.
Dr. Demore, College of Eastern Medicine, SCU. Just as a side comment from Ron Zeidman's comment. Yes, that probably is the case now that DAOM is recognized, and it should be. I mean, I'm a holder of a DAOM. It's the postgraduate doctorate. I think it should stay that way. We should reserve that title for that program. And yes, it is true there are economic opportunities open to those individuals, professional opportunities that are not open to masters. And that's fantastic and wonderful. And that was some of the motivating factors for many of us to do our DAOM. I don't think that that degree title again should be reserved for that degree. However, the nation is not even aware in many cases of the first professional doctorate existence. So as those individuals start graduating from those institutions, if they have a good reputation and the programs are of high quality, I suspect that those FPD titles may begin to be, I mean, it's somewhat unpredictable what will happen in the future. Will they have the same recognition as a DAOM or not? I mean, there are many different doctoral degrees in other fields. I think we have to widen our worldview here as well. I mean, we're so used to looking at things in just the acupuncture world. We need to broadly search what's happening in other professions. It's not that PhDs vary in number of hours and names and titles. You know, that's a very good point that you want. But in any case, while that DAOM is esteemed, especially now, it's really uncertain what will happen in the future in terms of whether an FPD degree will be, it is a doctor's degree. So, I think we should point that out. And at the same time, I totally support differentiating the DAON degree from the FPD degree. But the marketplace will decide how it's regarded in the future.
Sure. We're gonna do one more public comment, and then we're gonna have to.
I have to table the
We're gonna have to table the other two topics, which were very important to me. The dry needling, which I know is very important to us, and I have a lot of information on that. Would love to hear the feedback and discuss that, but I'll just let's just hear some public comment.
Dr. Duncan, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the master's program will disappear. As Dr. Maloney said, the market will decide. The FPD program, the entry-level doctorate, is significantly more expensive than the master's program. Doesn't give you a greater scope of practice. So let the market decide. And currently, though, the postgraduate DAON is the terminal degree. In academia, we look at candidates and evaluate professors and practitioners to see whether they have a terminal degree. Currently, the postgraduate DAON is the highest level of education available in our profession. It is a terminal degree at Andrews College. We look at that in higher faculty and practitioners.
Sure.
Just wanted to emphasize that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all this feedback. We love this information, and this is exactly what we want. We want you to know that we're engaging this. We're trying to sort whatever we can out. But just to reemphasize what we said in the beginning, the CAB does not really have any control over this unless we change the statutes and our legislation. Outside that, our job is to just really protect the public and to set that curriculum to sit for the Cali exam. And how those titles are labeled or how those degrees are set forth are really by the schools. I know there's some accreditation with Boston and other organizations. Okay, we do have the dry needling technique, and then the last other topic I want, because we're not going to get to today, was the needle regulations and the Board of Pharmacy, which I had great extensive conversations on both ends with practitioners and organizations and the Board of Pharmacies from across the country. But because this topic was a hot topic today, and we're going to wind up having to table those two other discussions for November's meeting. We'll leave it at that. I don't think there's anything really eminent with the other two topics, so we're going to have to table the other two.
Public comment right on the agenda.
For the next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any public comments for items that are not on the agenda for the November meeting?
For the research committee.
For the research committee.
Yeah, there was Jacques Montmartre Academic in Andrews College. There was a request for the bleeding, so-called bleeding, to be put, and I didn't see it because that's another area that seems to be
And what about bleeding? Are you interested? Bleeding, cupping, or just
just the term bleeding, because there's been a lot of confusion with some of the wording in the regulation and in the curriculum. So, most students right now, of course, that's part of the educational objective, part of the training. However, it's not applied in the clinic due to some past action that was taken at the board level.
So, so the bleeding concept or term being applied in the academia and the education level and in the professional?
Yeah. Scope of practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scope and
That's education.
So it's
Education.
Yeah. You can bring that up again at the full board meeting if you like, but we
So
definitely.
it's education.
I think that would
We'll
be.
determine
That's education.
Yeah.
Thank you. Last.
Bill Mosca. I just wanted to make a very quick comment regarding the prior conversation around degrees. And this is something that the legal counsel can advise you further on. But there is Supreme Court precedent with regard to regulatory agencies restricting the use of titles. It's commercial free speech. I think it's a Florida Board of Accountancy case that came before the Supreme Court, and they ruled that if it was a legitimately earned credential, state regulatory agencies are prohibited from restricting the use of that title.
Sure.
And so, I'm sure that's something that we would.
That wasn't our agenda at all, you know that.
Yeah.
We're not trying to do that, we're just trying to inform and get some information and explain what we know.
Right, but even with sort of additional statutory authority, that may not be possible due to commercial free speech.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna close this now, and then Ms. Hill will be here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just adjourn.
I'd like to adjourn this meeting, thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, please call roll.
Okay. Delegado Maldonado,
Present.
Jamie Zamora.
Here.
Kip Chan,
Present.
Dr. Michael Cordino,
Present.
Francisco Shea is absent, Jean Kane,
President.
5-0, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mark. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the California Acupuncture Board meeting held today at the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, which we affectionately call PCOM, here on Wednesday, September 21st, 2016. I believe this is our 5th meeting of the year, and it's really part B to what's intended to be a follow-up to the last meeting, which was on August 31st about our regulations. So aside from our regulations, we have a lot on the agenda, and I appreciate all of you being here today to participate in this process. I really want to thank the board members and the staff for preparing for this meeting. Having 2 meetings in less than a month's time is very difficult, but I think the staff has been doing it with shining colors, and the DCA legislature, especially Kelsey, has been on our side the whole time. So it's a pleasure bringing this together again on this day. Finally, before we get started, I wanted to thank PCOM for their hospitality. They really opened up the doors here for us, and thank you very much for welcoming us here to this facility today. So without further ado, let's get started on agenda item number 3, which is the petition for reinstatement of surrendered license.
We'll go on the record. All right, we're on the record, and this is a matter of the petition of reinstatement of surrendered license for John Chin. It's case number PRRL-A-115-72. Today's date is September 21st, 2016. Hearing being held before a quorum, the board of California Acupuncture. Will counsel identify yourselves for the record?
Good morning, Judge Berg. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Joe McKenna. I'm the Deputy Attorney General on behalf of the Attorney General's Office in the people of the state of California.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Rita Gonzalez. I'm counsel for the petitioner, Dr. Kang, who is seated here to my left.
Thank you. And we have the assistance of a Mandarin Korean interpreter. If you would stand and raise your right hand, I'll swear you in.
My name is Pat Crook. I'm the California Consulate Party of Affairs.
Okay, and do you swear that you'll accurately interpret from the Korean language to the English language, and the English language to the Korean language to the best of your ability?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as a petition for reinstatement, I generally hear from the Attorney General's office to give us some background. So, Mr. McKenna.
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly how we got here. We are here on a petition for reinstatement of the surrendered license. On September 26, 2005, the Executive Director of the Acupuncture Board issued an accusation of petition of revoke probation against the petitioner, alleging 2 causes for discipline. That petitioner was convicted of a crime substantially related to the practice of acupuncture, and that petitioner committed dishonest or corrupt acts. The case was resolved by way of a stipulated surrender that became effective on April 23, 2006. As part of the stipulation, the petitioner admitted the truth of the charges and allegations in the accusation and petition for probation, and he surrendered his license. Since that time, the petitioner has petitioned this court for reinstatement 3 times and has been denied on each occasion in 2009, 2011, and 2015. Today, the petitioner is seeking reinstatement of his surrendered license. His petition package was filed on August 10, 2015, and I think you will find find in front of you, and it's marked as Exhibits A through J. It consists of the petition itself and numerous attachments. Finally, it is the petitioner's burden to demonstrate that he is rehabilitated and that his certificate should be reinstated. Therefore, I have nothing further at this time, but I reserve the right to cross-examine the petitioner should he choose to testify.
Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez.
I think you briefly choose an opening statement. As Mr. McKenna pointed out, Dr. Chang has petitioned for reinstatement before the board in 2009, 2011, and 2013. We are not here today to dispute the misconduct that led to the revocation of the license. We are here today to add to what has previously been presented to the board in terms of Dr. Chang's rehabilitation. Since his 2013 petition has been denied, Dr. Chang has undertaken additional efforts towards his rehabilitation. He has completed 88 hours of clinical volunteer work at an acupuncture clinic, and he is a university, and he's completed 96 hours of volunteer work at a private clinic. In addition to that, since his last hearing, Dr. Chang has completed almost 190 hours of continuing education, of which 19.5 have been directed towards ethics in legal courses. In addition to these things, Dr. Chang engages in almost daily review of acupuncture treatises to keep up to date in acupuncture methods. He's been persistent in his desire for a reinstatement of his acupuncture license. You'll find that he's remorseful for his conduct and that at this point his acupuncture license should be reinstated.
Thank you. All right, just go through the exhibits real quick. You have a packet A through J, and I believe that there's K as well.
That is Exhibit J. So in addition to the A through H, which has been provided, there's an additional Exhibit I, which is proof of completion of an additional seminar, Tong and Associates seminar on May 14th, 2016, in ethics and law for 3 hours. And Exhibit J is a list of books and treatises that Dr. Chang reviews that he prepared.
I just got those today. I will be able to circulate that later. Okay, I will receive A through J. All right, how would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Your Honor. We'd like to start with Dr. Chang.
Okay. Dr. Chang, raise your right hand. Stand and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you'll be giving will be the truth, so much as Thank you. Have a seat.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Chang. Where are you from originally? Before further, would it be easier if Dr. Chang speaks Korean? And when did you come to the U.S.?
1976.
Are you married?
Yes.
How long have you been married?
I got married in 1972.
Do you have any kids?
Yes.
How many kids do you have?
4.
And do you have any grandkids?
Yes. 7.
And do you hold any degrees? Did you graduate from college or university?
Yes.
Where did you graduate from college?
GBM. GBM. Yes. Yes, I graduated from college majoring in veterinary medicine.
And what university did you get your degree from?
Jeonbuk National University. It was CHON, BUK, National University.
And is that in Korea?
Yeah, 한국인은? Yes.
And do you have any other degrees?
밖에 다른 그 학위 있으십니까? Yes. Yes, I earned a degree in the United States.
And when did you come to the U.S.?
미국에 들어서 살았죠. 1976.
And what degrees did you earn in the U.S.?
미국에서 무슨 디그리를 드셨나요? DC? Doctor of Chiropractic and LAC? LAC. So 2 degrees together? PhD. And the DC, LAC, and PhD.
And when did you earn your chiropractor degree?
chiropractic은 이제 다시죠? 86년? 1981.
And your acupuncture degree?
Acupuncture. 1983.
And your PhD?
PhD. 1985.
And what's your PhD in?
PhD는 어디에 전공이에요? Doctor of Oriental Medicine.
And did you have a license with the chiropractor board in California?
그 chiropractic 그 라이선스가 있다고 디그리 받으셨다고 하는데 그럼 그 캘리포니아 chiropractic 라이선스를 받으셨나요? Yes.
Was that license also revoked?
그것도 취소됐나요? Yes.
Have you petitioned for reinstatement of that license?
복구해달라고 증정서 냈나요? Yes.
And was that petition for has a petition for reinstatement you filed been granted?
그래서 복구 chiropractic 그 라이선스를 복구해달라고 했는데 그 증정서가 승인이 됐나요? Yes.
And when was that granted?
언제 승인이 됐습니까? April 2016.
So pretty recently.
최근이네. Yes.
Dr. Chang, you petitioned for reinstatement with the acupuncture board before, correct?
Acupuncture 그 라이선스도 좀 복구해달라고 증정서 낸 적이 있었죠? Yes.
In 2009, 2011, and 2013.
2009년도, 2011년, 2013년 맞죠? Yes.
Can you turn to this packet of documents in front of you, Exhibit C?
Exhibit C.
Do you recognize the documents that make up Exhibit C, Dr. Chang?
Yes.
And I'll direct you to look at the first 8 pages of Exhibit C. Do you recognize the February 5, 2014 decision by the Acupuncture Board?
2014년도 2월달에 아큐펑처 보드에서 결정된 거죠. 일본에서 페이지 Okay.
Did you review the February 2014 decision before the hearing today?
물어보시기 전에 2014년 2월 14일 decision 나오셨습니까? Yes.
Okay. And do you agree with the factual allegations that summarize your prior misconduct with the board?
그게 뭔 말입니다. 이러이러하고 이러이러한 행위가 처리가 있습니다. 사실적인 그런 주장인데 거기에 대해서 어떻게 하십니까? Yes.
And in 2005, you surrendered your acupuncture license. Is that correct?
2005년도에 그저 반납하셨죠? 라이센스 아큐펑처. Yes.
Why did you surrender your license?
그때 왜 반납하셨나요? 아큐펑처 라이센스. I did admit I had done something wrong, so I wanted to start all new again.
And what did you do wrong?
어떠한 거 다시 하셨습니까? There are a number of factors involved. I think I did not abide the professionalism, and although I was supposed to. And also did a misconduct with regards to insurance. And I believe I did something wrong to the community. And also I believe I caused emotional and financial hardship to my own family.
Okay, well, why don't we go back? You received a criminal conviction, correct?
범죄 의심을 받으셨죠? Yes.
What were you convicted of?
그 범죄적으로 그러니까 그 코트에서 받은 그 범죄 혐의가 무엇이었습니까? Kickback to lawyer. And mail fraud. Those two things.
And were you placed on probation as a result of your criminal conviction?
그런 행위를 가지고 probation에 처해졌습니까? Yes.
Did you complete your probation?
The probation 다 끝마치셨습니까? Yes, I finished it very cleanly.
Do you know approximately when you completed your probation?
프로베이션을 언제 끝마친지 기억나십니까? I believe it was 2007.
Since we have a rather robust disciplinary history behind us,
Oh.
maybe if we could just focus on the
Sure,
presentation,
sure,
that's probably what the board is most interested in.
Sure. Who did you harm as a result of your misconduct?
본인의 그랬던 행위로서 누구한테 피해를 끼쳤습니까? I believe I hurt the acupuncture professional community. And also hurt the profession, the acupuncture profession, integrity and reputation. And I believe I also hurt the insurance company, although the damage was relatively small, less than $1,000.
Do you recognize that what you did was wrong?
그러니까 본인이 하는 것이 분명히 잘못된다고 생각하시는 겁니까? Yes, I remorse very deeply.
How has the surrender of your acupuncture license affected your life?
그 본인이 그 라이센스를 또 반납을 함으로해가지고 본인의 그 라이프에 어떤 영향을 미쳤습니까? I believe I did something wrong very big. So I've been very remorseful about my conduct. And I made up my mind I will never do this kind of thing again in the future. That's about it.
What did you do to earn a living after you surrendered your acupuncture license?
그 라이센스 뺏긴 다음에 그 뭘로 생각하셨습니까? Because I did not have any other choice, I ran a coin laundry for about 5 years. Rehabilitation 하려고. So I quit the coin laundry business because the business was not good. And then I focused on my own rehabilitation. And after that, I have had no job.
What do you do on a daily basis now? How do you support yourself?
현재는 경제를 어떻게 자신있게 서포트하십니까? I have no income, and I depend on the Social Security as a financial source. And 8 children altogether from my family, they support me.
4 children plus
For my own children and also 4 in-laws.
And on a daily basis, what do you do? Do you help care for your grandkids?
그럼 매일매일 어떤 활동 하시냐고요? 그러니까 손자를 돌보니까 어떻게? Yes, I care for my 7 grandchildren.
On a daily basis?
매일매일? Yes, almost.
Prior to filing this petition for reinstatement in 2015, were you doing therapy
2015년도에
with Dr. Cohen?
피지션을 접수하기 전에 닥터 코엔하고 그 테라피를 치료를 받고 있었습니까? Yes.
And what did you learn from Dr. Cohen?
닥터 코엔의 그 테라피를 통해서 무엇을 배우셨습니까? I learned what I did wrong, and also learned what hurt the community. I also learned what hurt small things and big things. And because she is a psychologist, she can help me relax myself.
And you don't treat with her anymore, correct?
더 이상 보지 않죠? No.
Why did you stop treating with
왜
Dr. Cohen?
그만두셨죠? 닥터 코엔하고? She recommended a group therapy and she released herself from the treatment.
And did you attend group therapy at Dr. Cohen's recommendation?
그래서 그 사람에게 추천대로 그룹 테라피 참여하셨나요? Yes, I did.
And what did you learn in group therapy?
그 그룹 테라피에서 무엇을 배우셨습니까? we shared our own experiences each other, and we shared what we did wrong each other.
And how often did you go to group therapy?
group therapy 얼마 자주 참여하셨나요? Sometimes twice a week. Sometimes 3 or 4 times a week.
And do you still attend group therapy?
지금도 참여하시나요? Not anymore.
Why not?
왜 그만두셨죠? They released me because they thought it was enough for me.
And Dr. Shin, can you turn to Exhibit G and the document in front of you?
G.
And do you recognize this document, Dr. Shin?
이게 G가 뭔지 알아보시겠습니까? Yes.
Did you ask Rena Chang from Mental Health Associates to write this letter for you?
Yeah. 지나친 보고 이 레터를 써달라고 하셨나요?
And
Yes.
did you complete your group therapy with Mental Health Associates?
Mental
Or with
Associates
Simi Valley Behavioral Health Clinic?
그 맞습니까? 거기 맞추신 겁니까? Yes.
Are I moved to admit Exhibit G into evidence?
Okay, I've received it.
Oh, you have? Sorry. Okay. Dr. Chang, do you also, can you turn to Exhibit F?
F.
And you recognize this document, right?
Yes.
And you completed volunteer work with the retired and senior volunteer program.
Retired senior volunteer program에서 그 volunteer work을 하셨습니까? Yes.
And what kind of volunteer work did you do?
그 무슨 자원봉사를 하셨습니까? It was mostly gardening, trimming trees, and the physical work.
And did you enjoy doing community service?
Community service 하셨어요? Did you do community service?
Did you like volunteering with the botanical garden?
그래서 인조이 하셨어요? 그럼 하실 때 보태니까 가면서. Yeah, I kind of like this kind of work.
In addition to volunteering with the botanical gardens, let's turn to Exhibit B. Did you also volunteer with Dominic University in LA?
LA University에서 자원봉사했습니까? Yes, I did.
Okay, and you volunteered there for 88 hours?
80시간으로 자원봉사를 하셨나요? Yes.
And what kind of volunteer work did you do at Dominic University?
동국대학에서 무슨 그 자원봉사를? Bongo University is an Oriental medicine college, and while I was there, I shared the information with the staff, including the doctors and internists. And I learned a lot about herbs at that college.
And when you started volunteering at Dominic University Clinic, were there other volunteers there? Or?
I was told I was the first one of its kind, and I guess I was already a volunteer, working there for the reasons I had.
And what reason were you working there?
거기서 하시는 그 volunteer work 하셨던 그 이유가 뭐였었죠? 무슨 일을 하셨다는 거예요? The board instructed me to go to a school or association and do professional volunteer work.
And did you volunteer? Do you do volunteer work anywhere else? Oh, sorry, strike that. Let me go back. Do you still volunteer at Dominic University?
I did not anymore.
Why did you stop volunteering there?
First of all, it's too much to travel. One way it takes about an hour and a half. I live in Ventura. So to me, it was too far to commute.
And where is Dominic University located?
It's in LA, downtown.
And did you do any other volunteer work aside from Dominic University related to acupuncture?
Yes.
Where did you volunteer?
At a wellness center in LA.
And is that with therapy and Shakian?
Yes. They do chiropractic, massage, and physical therapy.
Okay. And what kind of volunteer work did you do while you volunteered at LA Wellness Spa?
It is a big clinic, so I participated in operation and also I participated in treatment.
Did you enjoy volunteering there?
Yes.
And why did you stop volunteering there?
I guess they didn't really feel comfortable for letting me work there as a volunteer because I was not getting paid at all.
In addition to volunteering with Dominic University and Dr. Charchin, you also completed continuing education courses?
continuing education post-BOD 대학 계속 하셨죠? Yes.
Can you turn to Exhibit D?
D는
And is that a summary of the courses you attended that you prepared?
Yes.
And the Exhibit E are the actual certificates that correspond with the courses you took in Exhibit D?
D는 Yes.
And you completed 170.5 hours in educational seminars?
교육 세미나에서 총 170.5시간을 마치는 것 같습니다. Yes.
And in your, can you turn to Exhibit I? And this is a certificate of completion for 3 more hours of ethics and law, correct?
윤리하고 법에 관련해서 3시간 수업을 맞습니까? 16시간 Yes, I completed 16 hours plus this 3-hour continuing education.
So you completed 19 hours in ethics and law?
그러니까 그 윤리랑 그 법에서 19시간을 맞습니까? Yes.
Did you find these ethics and law seminars beneficial?
비디오와 그 법에 관한 그 세미나가 본인에게 도움이 됐다고 생각하십니까? Yes.
How so?
어떤 식으로 도움이 되든 I didn't realize before the ethics involves so many things, so much in detail. So I learned a lot from the course.
And are you a member of the Korean Acupuncture and Asian Medicine Association?
Korean Acupuncture with Asian Medical Association member입니까? Yes.
How long have you been a member?
그 어소시에이션에 얼마 동안 멤버이셨습니까? I have been a member for a long time, and when my license was revoked, I quit, and then I restarted about 5 years ago.
And are you a member of the California Chiropractic Association?
California Chiropractic Association member. Yes.
And how long have you been a member of the California Chiropractic Association?
Chiropractic Association은 멤버는 몇 년 하셨습니까? Like before, I had been a member for a long time, and then I quit, and I restarted about 5 years ago.
You talked about the courses you've taken. Do you also do any private study in terms of keeping yourself up to date in acupuncture practice?
지금까지 컨티뉴 에듀케이션을 얘기했는데 그 앞에 그 본인이 제가 에코펑처에 대한 어떤 관점이나 그거를 위해서 흡수하기 위해서 개인적으로 공부를 하셨나요? Yes, I did a lot.
And can you look at Exhibit J?
J. Yes.
And did you prepare this document?
본인이 직접 작성하신 겁니까? Yes.
And this is, what is this document?
이게 무슨 내용의 질문입니까? I listed the books I have read in the last 2 years. Actually, there's a lot more books that are listed here, but I listed all the major ones.
And how often do you, which books do you review most often?
어떤 북들을 가장 자주 읽으시나요? From 1 to 3.
Okay, and what are those books?
Number 1 to 12 하셨는데 제가 읽는 보니까 어떤 내용들은 Number 1 Number 1 is the title is Kim's Acupuncture Technique. It's about the technique in acupuncture.
And how often do you review that book?
이 책을 얼마나 자주 보셨나요? I read this book and the second book almost on a daily basis.
Okay, and what is the second book?
second book은 뭐지? The title is The Revolution of Oriental Medicine.
What is that? What's that book about?
이게 무슨 왜 관하시는 It focuses on the traditional acupuncture techniques and also incorporates Taoism and other Chinese classics in acupuncture.
Okay, and what is the third book?
This is a book about chiropractors. I use this one more than any of the techniques. This book about the major techniques.
And Dr. Chen, you petitioned for your acupuncture license in 2009, 2011, 2013, and now in 2015. Why do you want your acupuncture license back?
2009년도 12년도 13년도에 acupuncture 라이센스를 회복해달라고 요청하셨고 이번에도 듣고 계신데 그 진정을 하는 이유가 뭡니까? 그 다시 가지고 어떻게 하시려고요? And I'm kind of old man now, and still regard acupuncture as my own profession. And once I get the license back, I'd like to continue in this profession as long as I live.
And you surrendered your license back in 2005. What will you do differently if your license were reinstated? If you were to get your license back, what would you? How would you prevent that from happening?
2005년도에 본인이 잘못해가지고 결국은 반납을 하게 됐는데 그것을 다시 찾게 되면은 그 전과는 다르게 당시 어떻게 행동을 하실 거예요? 생각하십니까? I cannot really live like this. I have to change my life and have to start a new life. And also, I would like to focus on acupuncture without mistake, without any wrongdoing. That's my last answer.
Would you agree to any restrictions, if the board were to put restrictions on your license if it were reinstated, would you agree to those restrictions?
자, 그러면 라이센스를 좀 반환을 해줄 때 보드에서 어떤 restrictions, 제한을 조건을 반대는 그 조건에 대해서 어떻게 하셨습니까? Yes.
If your license were to be reinstated, what kind of acupuncture services will you be providing to the public?
만약에 다시 라이센스를 갖게 되면 그 일반 대중들에게 어떠한 그 acupuncture 서비스를 제공하실 것입니다. 내가 I'm a chiropractor as well as acupuncture. So once I get the license back, I'd like to combine both the best of East and the West medicine and to serve the public with my whole effort.
I have nothing further.
Anything, Mr. McKenna?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Dr. Chang. I'd like to ask you some questions about your initial letter to the board for this particular petition for 2013. You wrote a narrative statement, correct?
2013년도에 진도 보냈을 때 아주 길게 서술을 하셔가지고 이제 진도에 편지를 올렸죠, 맞죠? Yes.
Did you write that letter by yourself?
그 진정서 길게 쓴 거 본인이 직접 주신 거예요? Yes, that's right.
So the letter that is marked as Exhibit A
이 2013년도 그 편지가
is a letter that you drafted entirely on your own.
그러니까 본인이 직접 영어를 다 쓰신다는 겁니까? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I wrote this myself.
Okay, thank you. Now, sir, you testified that you entered into the stipulation in 2005 to surrender your license, is that you accepted responsibility for the wrongdoing that you had committed, correct?
2005년도에 그 포기한 이유가 본인이 한 것을 인정했고 그것은 그렇기 때문에 2005년도에 만나가신 것 같습니다. Yes.
And to be clear about wrongdoing, you were convicted of committing felonies, correct?
그 중범 그 저지르신 거 맞죠? Yes.
You pled guilty in federal court.
거기에 대해서 그저 자기가 인정을 하셨죠? Yes.
And so, at the time that you accepted responsibility with the Acupuncture Board, you had already pled guilty in federal court, right?
그러니까 아큐펑처의 그 보드에서 있었을 때는 이미 그 전에 그 코드에서 그 자기가 그 했다는 것을 인정하신 그 후에 그 아큐펑처 보드에 쓴 거죠? Yes.
And it's your position that you entered into the stipulation to surrender your license because you wanted to take ownership of what you did?
그 본인이 그 자기 라이선스를 포기한 이유가 자기의 잘못을 인정하고 거기에 대한 그 책임을 그 진다는 그런 의미에서 포기하신 거 맞습니까? Yes.
In fact, that's what you put in your narrative, correct?
사실 그 편지에도 써 있네요, 맞습니까? That's right.
You wanted to accept responsibility for your conduct.
거기에 대해서 본인의 책임에 그 행동의 책임을 지기 위해서 그런 거죠? Yes.
Now, what I don't understand, Dr. Chang, is at the same time that you were taking ownership for the conduct, you continued to fight for your license with the chiropractor board. Isn't that correct?
근데 본인의 이 아큐펑처 라이선스 그 포기한 이유가 그 자신의 잘못을 인정했기 때문에 스스로 풀면서 일단 그 카이로프랙터 그 라이선스를 또 보존하기 위해서 그 카이로프랙터 그 보드와 서로 이렇게 거기에 대해서 굉장히 어떤 쟁투 중이 아니었었습니까? 계속 그 라이선스를 유지하기 위해서 그 사람들하고 이렇게 파이팅하고 있는 상태 아니었어요?
Can I just make a point there? Yeah. You went to hearing in front of the chiropractor board to defend your license. Isn't that correct?
그러니까 뺏기지 않으려고 카이로프랙터 뺏기지 않으려고 라이선스 그 사람들 그 보드 히어링에 가서 그 항변하지 않았습니까? 다시는? 아 그래? 그쪽에서 행위가 와가지고 모르네 생일이 원래 6 months it's the same thing. My chiropractor license was suspended, maybe with a 6 months difference between this post license. So I received the letter, so I didn't really have time to argue with the board.
Sir, is it your testimony that you did not attend a hearing on March 23rd, 2007 before an administrative law judge, before the chiropractor board in defense of your certificate as a chiropractor?
잘 들으세요. 예. 2007년 10월달에 그 카이로프랙터 라이선스를 위해서 그 취입하기 위해서, 그 간직하기 위해서 2007년 3월달 그 행정부 법원에 그 히어링 참여를 하지 않으셨습니까? 카이로프랙터 라이선스를 그쪽 뺀다고 하니까 거기에 대해서 히어링 문제 아시죠? 히어링을 받기 위해서 2007년도 3월달에 그 사람들이 보드 앞에서 그 히어링 그 어드미니스트레이티브 그 행정 그 재판처입니다. 그 앞에 쓰지 않으셨어요? 네, 그걸 물어보는 거예요.
I was there, but
Yeah, I was at the hearing. That's fine. That's right.
but I didn't argue anything. I just say the same thing.
I didn't defend myself or anything. I just admitted.
So, Your Honor, I'm a little confused. I don't know what your question is. We're going between English and Korean now. English and English.
Yes, if you could stick with Korean.
가능하죠. 지금 뭐 좀 이렇게 얘기가 좀 안 통하고 있어요. 그러니까 영어를 쓰지 마시고 한국말로만 얘기하면 어려운 거예요. 이 질문을 I'm asking him if he understood my interpretation correctly. 제 통역을 충분히 이해를 하신 겁니까? He said yes.
I guess what I don't understand, Dr. Chang, and hopefully you can clarify for us, is on the one hand, with the acupuncture board, you surrendered your license. However, in front of the chiropractor board, you didn't surrender your license. You did enter into a stipulation. In fact, you took it to hearing and lost. Your license was revoked. Do you
제가
understand the
저번 얘기한 게
difference?
뭐냐면 에코펑처 보드에서는 자기가 잘못했고 그 당연히 라이선스 뺀다니까 잘못했으니 갖고 가셔라고 한 한편에 그랬는데 그 카이로프랙터 그 라이선스는 말이에요. 스스로 이렇게 포기를 하고 반납하지 않고 사실은 그걸 보전하기 위해서 그 히어링까지 가가지고 그 자신을 항변했다 그거예요. 그렇지 않았습니까? Well, as far as I know, I did the same thing with the chiropractor board, like I did with the acupuncture board. I don't know what you mean by defend myself to get the license.
So, Dr. Chang, is it your recall or is it your testimony here today that you surrendered your license to the chiropractor board
Yeah.
in 2007?
2007년도에 그 카이로프랙터 보드에 그 본인의 그 라이선스를 스스로 반환하신 거 맞습니까? Yeah, that's right.
So it's your testimony that based upon the federal convictions for the felonies from 2004, for which you surrendered your license to the acupuncture board, you did the same with the chiropractor board?
그 2004년도에 그 본인이 하는 거 빼더라고요. 그 범죄로 인해 가지고 라이선스 반납하라 하는 게 아쿠펑처 보드에 반납했고 마찬가지로 카이로프랙터 보드에서 본인의 라이선스를 같은 이유로 반납을 했다 스스로 했다는 거예요. 저항 안 하고. Yes, exactly.
So, and the reason I bring this up, Dr. Chang, is because you made the point in your testimony in your letter that was a sign that you accepted responsibility, that's a sign of your rehabilitation for what you had done wrong, correct?
제가 이거 물어보는 건 말입니다. 편지에도 그런 말을 했는데 그렇게 하신 이유는 자기 잘못을 했으니까 보이는 책임지고 거기서 나가 이제 되게 안팎하겠다는 의미라는 건 아닙니까? That's fine.
And Dr. Chang, you would agree that accepting responsibility for something you did wrong, that's a fundamental step towards rehabilitation, correct?
그 사람이 그 하나 그 회생이 된다는 거는 본인이 잘못한 거에 대한 그 책임을 진다는 것이 일단 기본적으로 그렇게 해야 되는 기본적인 행동이라는 거에 대해서 그 동의하시죠? Of course.
By entering into the stipulation, you said, you're right, I did wrong, here's my license, is that correct?
그 동의한 이유는 맞습니다. 나 잘못했으니까 이 라이선스 가능하겠으니 가주십시오. 그런 의미라는 겁니까? That's right.
Now, in 1996, you were convicted of 2 felonies in Los Angeles Superior Court for fraudulent insurance claims, correct?
1996년도에 그 인슈런스 그 프로드로 사기로 LA 코트에서 거기서 그 유죄 행위하셨죠. That's right.
And you pled guilty?
거기서 그 유죄를 인정하셨죠. That's right, of course.
Did you accept responsibility for your conduct at that time in front of the acupuncture board?
그래서 그때 당시에 그 자기가 한 그 책임을 그 진단을 위해서 아큐펑처 보드에서도 자기의 책임을 인정을 하시는 겁니까?
Objection, Your Honor. To the extent that Dr. Chang is exercising his due process rights to try to preserve his license before the acupuncture board as a result of the convictions, felonies in 1997, I don't think that has any bearing or relevance to his rehabilitation at this present date.
Yes. I can. You want to repeat the question, Ryan? It's okay. I can do it. So regarding conviction in 1996, for which you pled guilty, did you accept responsibility with the acupuncture board at that time for the wrongdoings that you had committed?
1990년대 인슈런스도 사기를 한 거에 대해서 아큐펑처 보호자 앞에서 자기가 그렇게 했다는 것을 인정하겠습니다. Yes, of course. That's why my license was suspended.
Well, sir, it was suspended following a hearing on the matter, correct?
그러니까 그 히어링을 한 다음에 본인이 라이센스가 서스펜된 거죠.
You went to hearing.
It was suspended and I surrendered my license.
In 1998, an accusation based upon the 1996 convictions was filed by the executive director of the Acupuncture Board. You recall that, correct?
1996년도에 있었던
In 1998, the executive director of the Acupuncture Board filed an accusation against you, Dr. Chang, for the convictions that you suffered in 1996. Is that much correct? Do you remember that much?
1998년도에 이 아큐펑처 그 커미티에 이기체프 디렉터가 말입니다. 그 1996년도 그 인슈런스 사기한 거에 대한 유죄 인정을 받았지 않습니까? 이제 그걸로 해가지고 그 파일을 했다는 겁니다. 1998년도에 이 아큐펑처 보드는 그 사건을 해가지고 기억하시죠? Yes.
And do you recall going in front of a hearing judge and having a hearing put on regarding the accusation and the allegations in it, sir?
그래서 그 저지 앞에서 그 그때 당시에 1990년도에 있었던 그 범죄와 거기에 대한 그 어떤 그 기소 내용에 대해서 그 저지 앞에 쓴 거 기억나십니까? Yeah, of course.
So in that instance, you didn't accept surrender. You didn't enter into a stipulated surrender with the board. You went ahead and fought the allegations that are here, correct?
Well, you could have fought the proposed discipline.
So my point is, sir, because we have previously agreed that acceptance responsibility is a big step towards rehabilitation. You agreed to that, correct?
그러니까 조금 아까 지난번에 말씀하셨을 때 자기 잘못하면 거기에 대해서 당연히 책임을 지고 거기에 대한 책임을 져야 된다고 말씀하셨죠? Yes?
What I want to know is, do you accept responsibility for the misconduct that you committed in 1996?
그러면
Because that's unclear.
현재 전화를 물어보는 게 범죄가 되게 아닙니까? 1999년도에 인슈런스 사기한 거 그거에 대한 것도 자기 본인이 그 과거를 부딪히고 거기에 대한 그 책임을 지겠다는 그런 태도였었습니까?
그게 현실에 나오고 이 카메라를 켜고 그다음에 이제 여기가 나오는 거죠. 이 날씨가 있고 이런 상황이 아니다.
My understanding is the two crimes I committed that are combined together. That's why I stood before the judge.
So, Dr. Chang, I want to ask you some questions about the therapy that you received. You received therapy from Dr. Cohn?
Yes.
Was that therapy in English, or does Dr. Cohn speak Korean? How describe that? Just how that took place.
He spoke English. He's not Korean.
And Dr. Cohn doesn't speak Korean.
Not at all. He doesn't. She's an American lady.
When did you receive therapy? What dates?
테라피는 문제에 가지고
Dr.
Cohn. I don't know. I don't remember the exact dates. It must be there in the document.
Well, approximately, when was the last time that you saw Dr. Cohn?
Dr. Cohn 마지막으로 본 게 이건 문제.
What year?
몇 년도에?
Do you not remember from memory?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Do you know if it was before the last hearing? The last hearing being in 2013?
2013년도 그 전이었었습니다. 마지막에 본 게. 마지막 히어링이 2013년도에 있었거든요. 그러니까 닥터폰을 본 게 그저 it was before.
So it could be before 2012. That was the last time you saw a therapist.
그러니까 2012년 정도일 수도 있겠네요.
It's okay, we can move on. It was your testimony that Dr. Cohn released you from her care, saying, now it's a part I wasn't clear on. Why did she release you from her
그
care?
닥터폰이 더 이상 보지 않는 이유가 당연히 출근이 안 해야 된다는 거예요. 뭐예요? 이상이 클리어지 않답니다. She recommended me to go to group therapy.
Now, when you were under Dr. Cohn's care, you indicate in your letter that together working with her, she helped you address the behaviors and triggers that I guess led to your past legal convictions, misconduct. What exactly were you discussing with Dr. Cohn? What are the triggers and behaviors that she helped you address? Can you please
지금
explain that?
그 레터를 길게 쓰지 않으셨습니까? 진정선 냈었을 때 본인이 쓰셨다면서요. 거기에 보면 그 닥터하고 공이 어떻게 도움이 됐느냐 하는 것과 관련해서 그 사람의 그 어떤 그 테라피가 내 과거에 그 범죄적인 행위를 하는 그 마인드를 추리가 이렇게 정말 아주 그 단추를 누는 거랑 마찬가지야. 이제 그렇게 행동을 할 수 있는 그런 그 마인드를 많이 릴렉스 시키고 많이 고치는 데 도움이 되었다라고 적혀있어요. What was the question? What were the triggers?
What were the triggers and behaviors that you worked on with Dr. Cohn that had to do specifically with the legal misconduct that he engaged in?
법적인 본인의 법적인 그 어떤 그 행위를 없애가지고 하니까 불법적인 행위를요. 그런 행위를 하게끔 그 추가적인 무효 단순과 마찬가지예요. 추가를 했던 게 어떠한 거였었습니까? 이 어떤 요소가 그런 법적인 불법적인 행위를 하게끔 문제였습니까?
무슨 법적인 얘기가 거의 없었어요. 사람을 만나서 이해하고 무엇이 나쁘거나 무엇이 어떠거나 이런 얘기 법적인 얘기를 거의 없었어요.
I never discussed, or we never discussed legal misconduct when I was being treated by Dr. Cohn.
I just explained it one time. Really legally good or bad,
so she never said that this is legally bad or this is legally accepted.
Yeah, we need to stay, Sarah, only because you're repeating his English.
Sorry?
He's repeating his English statements. If the petitioner is going to testify in English, I think we should just stand on his statement.
And do you want to speak in English or?
영어로 하시겠어요?
You got it.
한국말을 하든지 영어를 왔다 갔다 하니까 저는 빨리 되는 거예요. 어떻게 하시겠어요? I'll stick with the Korean.
Alright.
그거 한국말 하세요. We never discussed legal methods. We discussed what's wrong and what is not wrong, those kind of things.
And then you said you were released to group therapy by Dr. Cohn. And when did you attend group therapy, if you remember?
그래서 그룹 테라피라는 도움이 될 거라 닥터 고민들 했는데 그런 그룹 테라피를 처음에 그 참가한 게 언제부터 됐어요?
그러니까 2013년이니까 나도 지금 얼굴 보니까
It was 2013, so I don't really recall exactly from my memory.
Do you know how many visits to this group therapy that you went to?
그렇습니다. 그룹 테라피를 몇 번이나 참여하시는 기억나십니까?
아까 얘기했는데 그때 중간자하고 하고 저한테는 그렇게 그하고 호흡을 한 6년
6 months. I said this before, by the way. I attended like 2-3 times a week. Altogether, I attended about 6 months.
And do you remember who the facilitator was of the group?
그때 그 포스터리테이터 그때 그 지도자가 누구인지 기억나시는 거예요?
Is it the mental health associate that we received a letter from, Raina Chang?
레나 chen 맞습니까? 멘탈 헬스 어소시에이션에서 일하는 레나 chen 그 포스터리테이터가 그 촉진자가 맞습니까? Yeah, that's correct.
And when you went to this group therapy, it was at the Simi Valley Behavioral Health Clinic, is that correct?
그 시미밸리에 있는 그 클리닉이 맞습니까? 그 그룹 테라피가요. 시미밸리에 있는 거냐고요? That's correct.
It wasn't anywhere else. When he went to the group therapy, they didn't meet anywhere else besides the behavioral health clinic.
그러니까 비헤비어럴 헬스 클리닉 그 시미밸리에 있는 거 거기서만 만난 거예요? 이 그룹이? That's right.
And you asked Raina Chang to submit this letter here for this hearing on your behalf, correct?
그리고 레나 chen 그 포스터리테이터한테 주제를 써가지고 히어링 있으니까 아쿠펑처 보드에다 보내달라고 부탁하셨어요?
To explain the progress that you've been making towards rehabilitation.
자신이 그 닥터장이 저 들어와서부터 이제 끝날 때쯤에서 어느 정도의 프로그레스 있었다는 보고서를 커뮤니티에 여기 커뮤니티에 보내달라고 이렇게 부탁하셨어요? Yes, I did.
I note that the letter is not on any sort of letterhead, or it's not signed under any sort. It does not contain a declaration of any penalty of perjury statement. Did you notice that, Doctor?
The letter he wrote?
No, sir. I'm still referring to Exhibit G.
Objection relevant.
I mean, that goes to weight. What is his answer going to add to that?
He's proffering the evidence to demonstrate in front of the board the statutory rehabilitation, and this is one component of it.
I think the board can consider that as far as.
I'm just, if you want to draw the board's identity.
I don't know that.
Document.
I think that's been done.
And mental health associate. You know the training that the person's had, Dr. Chang?
그 닥터층이라는 사람이 그 멘탈 헬스 어소시에이션에 있었는데 그 사람이 어떤 그 백그라운드가 있는지 아십니까? My understanding is she's a psychology counselor.
Is a female? Is Miss Chang in relation to you?
뭐예요? A female.
And I note the last name. By any chance, is Miss Chang any relations to Dr. Chang? To you, sir?
고유층이라고 했는데 좀 장생교층이란 말이어서 뭐 친척 관계입니까? 네? 큰 친? Not really.
Might not really.
큰 친척은 아니라는 게 뭐예요? 친척이다 아니다.
Sir, can I just clarify? When I say in relation, I could be by blood, by marriage.
제가요, 그 어떤 친척 관계를 했을 때는 남편과 부인 관계 될 수 있는 거고, 그 다음에 어떤 그 가족 관계일 수도 있는 거고.
You understand the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you answer the question?
No, she's not my relative.
Well, when
I'm sorry, did he just tell you that?
Yes.
So when you said not really, what were you unclear on, sir?
근데 아까는요, 어떻게 얘기했어요? 큰 친척은 아니다, 친척이다 아니다, 둘 중에 하나인데 큰 친척 아니다는 게 무슨 말이에요? 네? Maybe you thought we might be related because of last name? No, we're not related to each other.
Okay, thank you. Now, in preparation, sir, of the petition packet, you had a number of letters submitted, and you were required to have 2 California licensed acupuncturists submit letters on your behalf. Correct? Understand that?
I'm sorry,
Sure, sorry about that.
Okay. In preparation of this package, what?
You were required to submit 2 letters from California licensed acupuncturists.
그 저희 진정서를 할 때 그 캘리포니아 에쿠펑처 라이센스 받은 사람으로부터 2 사람으로부터 레터를 같이 첨부하게 되어 있습니다. Yes.
And it was your understanding that the letters should contain information from these acupuncturists, information that had to do with the progress that you have made in your rehabilitation.
그 사람들이 쓴 편지에는요, 지금 장 선생님이 그동안 어떤 그 프로그레스를 가 있었다라고 한 내용에 인포메이션이 그 각 편지에 들어있어야 됩니다. I don't know about that. I just asked them to write recommendation letters. I don't know what they wrote exactly.
You didn't review the letters?
그 사람들이 써준 편지 내용을 읽지 않겠어요? I did, but no, I cannot do anything about it. What they wrote.
So looking at Exhibit H, so I'm going to look at the two letters. One is from Dr. Kim and the other is from Dr. Moon.
닥터 킴이라고 하는 사람하고 닥터 문이라고 하는 사람부터 각각 그 레터를 받았습니다. 그리고 제출했어요.
I have not found a letter from Dr. Moon. I see Dr. Kim's.
문이 쓴 편지는 당연히 눈에 안 보이고 닥터 킴이 쓴 편지는
Last one.
Dr. didn't make it into my version of Exhibit H.
It didn't make it into mine either. But it did come to me in the original packet, forwarded to me the board. So if all of the board members have it, I'll proceed. Okay. So in review of these letters, Dr. Chang, and I can just lump them both together, Dr. Kim and Dr. Moon's, I don't see any indication from my review of it that they knew anything about your disciplinary history in front of the acupuncture board. So my question for you is, did you fully discuss and fully disclose to Dr. Kim and Dr. Moon the history, your disciplinary history for the acupuncture board before they wrote this letter?
이 자체를 보니까 장 선생님이 그 과거에 어떤 그 행위를 한 게 가지고 이 아큐펑처 보드서부터 지금 현재 그다 뺏기고 했다라고 한 내용을 충분히 얘기를 안 하시는 것 같아요. 근데 그냥 장 선생님이 과거에 어떤 나쁜 짓을 했는지 그거에 대해서 잘 모르고 있는 모양인데 그거에 대해서 다 얘기하셨으니까 그 사람들은 Of course, I discussed my actions with them before they wrote letters for me, and without my full explanation about what I did, the wrongdoing, and how could they have written these letters?
Yes, I agree. And I also, Doctor, direct your attention to Exhibit B. These are two additional letters that you had submitted to the board. And they're both undated, so if you can help me determine when were they written?
그 레터 두 개가 또 추가로 있는데 그 날짜가 적혀 있어요. 그 날짜 언제 적혔는지 얘기를 좀 하래요. 아니면 It says here April 2015, so the date should be approximated to April 2015.
Now, Doctor, I'm going to ask you the same question for these two letters. Regarding disclosure, did you fully disclose with the authors of these two letters the basis for your board discipline?
자, 이 두 편지도요, 편지의 내용이 대해서 읽어봤는데 똑같은 질문을 하게 됩니다. 이 쓴 사람이 있을 거 아닙니다. 아니니까 그 사람한테 장 선생님이 이걸 부탁하기 전에 내가 이러한 나쁜 짓을 해가지고 내가 이 라이센스를 위해서 해야겠다. 그래서 이것을 다시 바꾸려고 하니까 좀 도와달라고 이렇게 충분히 가르치셨나요? 노출하셨나요? 자기 본인의 그 가오를?
이런 노치 없이 이런 그냥 와이컴이 누가 볼까요?
Of course, I fully disclosed what I did. Without my disclosure of my this conduct I did, they would not have written these letters. The first question would be, why did you come to us? Yeah, what was their first question? Why did you come to us? Why would you need the letters from us? So I had to disclose. So this is, I was kind of their first case, so it wasn't natural for them to ask me why they came. So I disclosed everything. Without disclosure, how could they write letters like this?
Thank you, Doctor. Also under direct examination, Doctor, you discussed the continuing education and the steps that you've taken, maintaining your knowledge and training in the field, correct?
아까 저 변호사가 물어봤을 때 continuing education, 자기가 이 직업에 대한 것을 새로운 지식을 계속 이제 업데이트하기 위해서 그 받았다는 내용의 그 대답하셨어요, 맞죠? That's right.
And you've offered as exhibits to show that is, I believe, for the board, if there's any exhibits I, or excuse me, E. I believe D is a log of the courses